I think I may just have found the single worst piece of career advice ever.
An employer invited 6 people for an interview. By 7 a.m., they were all dressed and sharp before the time. He told them to wait. By 3 p.m., 3 had left. By 6 p.m., he came and met only 2. They got the job. That was the interview. Test of patience.
This story has made the rounds on the internet so many times, and every time I've been like, come on, there's no way this is real, right? This has got to be rage bait that someone made up for the clicks. So when I was researching this video, I did some digging and I unearthed the original tweet, and lo and behold, Jerry Doubles is absolutely a real person who totally stands behind his message, though he does get a little vague when he's challenged on the specifics of the story. While the story is clearly made up, Jerry is using it to tell you something about how he thinks you should act at work. In this case, that if the job interview you're scheduled for runs a tiny bit late, what's 11 hours between friends, the smart thing to do is to just sit around and wait, and your patience will be rewarded in the end. Now, I know you already know this, but just for the record and to establish the theme of this video, this is terrible advice. Any workplace willing to treat job applicants this badly has no respect for people and are probably treating people even worse once they've taken the job. And companies set up all kinds of weirdness and obstacles in their hiring processes. Delays are common, even though they're not usually 11 hours. But they might also ask you to do free work as part of the hiring, or ask you to submit the same information about yourself several times in different systems, or put you through an insane number of job interviews. Ha! One recruiter even asked an applicant to stop by Starbucks on the way to the job interview and buy coffee for the boss. A company that pulls a stunt like this is not selecting for job skills. They're selecting for compliance. They are actively looking for people who will not stand up for themselves against mistreatment. Telling people to accept that kind of thing when applying for a job is terrible advice. And if you ever find yourself on the receiving end of this type of behavior, my advice is to get out of there as fast as humanly possible. There is so much bad career advice out there. So many experts and pundits are yelling from the top of their lungs about exactly how you should be running your career. And the really frustrating thing is that most of what they say has already been proven to be wrong by readily available research. For example, some billionaire rando may rail against working from home, but all the research evidence shows that people are happier, less stressed, and more productive when they have the option to work from home. Some self-help weirdo may claim that diversity programs at work are the end of Western civilization, that men and women being together in the workplace is just an untested experiment, and women wearing makeup at work is proof that, I'll be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what it is supposed to be proof of. Meanwhile, the actual facts, which do not care about his feelings at all, say that diversity is great for a company's profits, and men and women have worked together for thousands of years, even with women wearing makeup. Some bitter boomer may rant about younger workers and their avocado toasts and participation trophies and lack of work ethic, when we know that young people work as effectively and productively as older generations. These types of claims are usually made with 100% conviction and 0% nuance, but scratch the surface even just a little, and you'll see that they're unsupported by any actual facts, or in many cases completely against all the available research. It's also worth noting that a lot of this stuff comes at you not in the form of direct advice, but as teaching parables, like the one about the 11-hour wait for a job interview, or as inspiring stories from some billionaires' fawning biography about how hard they worked in their youth instead of all the privilege they grew up with. It's kind of like Aesop's fables, but for adults.
Once upon a time, there were 6 worker ants who had a very demanding boss who made them work so many extra hours and yelled at them in front of the... It got so bad that 2 of the worker ants got sick from the stress and had to quit. 3 others were fired when they tried to unionize the anthill. But the last remaining faithful worker ant was promoted to management and could now do whatever she wanted to her workers.
When career advice is delivered indirectly like this in the form of morality tales, the message can be even more insidious because it sneaks in under your radar. I have worked in this field and followed the research for over 20 years. And if all of this advice was merely wrong, I could probably let it slide. Or maybe not. But it turns out that a lot of this is not only factually incorrect, it's also incredibly dangerous. When some rich person says that the only way to get ahead at work is to put in 80-hour work weeks, he's not only spouting easily disproved nonsense, he is actively hurting people because research shows that permanent overwork can make people seriously ill or even kill them. If you follow this bad career advice, there is every chance that it'll make things so much worse for you and ruin your health, your happiness, and ironically, even your career. And this dumb advice isn't just hurting individuals. When some idiot rails against people working from home, they're actively trying to stop something that could ease traffic congestion in cities, improve air quality and population health, and reduce global warming. But here's the thing, there's so much bad and harmful career advice out there that there's just no way anyone can refute all of it. So in this video, I want to warn you about the 5 worst kinds of people who are both very loud and also very wrong about work. 5 kinds of people that you need to be able to recognize and ignore whenever they spout off about work. We're going to go through each of the 5 and look at what they say, why they tend to grab our attention, and most of all, we'll see exactly how they're wrong using science.
In the face of overwhelming odds, I'm left with only one option. I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
If this sounds like a cool topic to you, please like the video and subscribe. And most of all, please write a comment. Why not write a comment with the worst piece of career advice you have ever seen or received? Okay, first group, rich people. If there is one group of people who will just not stop spouting terrible career advice, it's rich people. People who sit on big piles of money often get the idea that their wealth is proof that they are always right and that the world would be a much better place if we would all just go along with their thinking on, well, basically everything. Some of them become very loud and very sure of themselves, even when talking about topics that are completely outside of their area of expertise. Here's Michael Dell explaining that he should be taxed less because actually he knows how to spend his money better than the government.
Well, look, I mean, my wife and I set up a foundation about 20 years ago, and I feel much more comfortable with our ability as a private foundation to allocate those funds than I do giving them to the government.
While the Scrooge McDucks of the world tend to be very vocal about all kinds of things, they especially will not shut up about how the rest of us should organize our careers. So what kind of sage career advice do the 0.00001%ers have for the rest of us? Well, first and foremost, they really, really want us to work more hours. Jack Ma is the billionaire founder of Chinese tech company Alibaba. And in 2019, he formulated the 996 rule.
You talked in support of the 996 work routine. To those who don't know it, you work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And you were given a hard time because of that. And you backed off a little bit.
No. 996 is the spirit that I encourage in Alibaba people. If you want to have a bright future, if you don't want to be give up by the society, if you want to be successful, you have to work hard. I'm doing 10 hours a day, 15 hours a day, it's nothing.
If you do the math, that comes out to 72 hours of work every single week, but don't worry, you do get one whole glorious day off every week. Here's Michael Bloomberg saying the same thing.
My key to success for you or for anybody else is make sure you're the first one in there every day and the last one to leave. Don't ever take a lunch break or go to the bathroom. You keep working.
But here's the thing though, if 70 hours a week is so great, why not 80 or 90 or 100? It turns out that Jack Ma and Michael Bloomberg are both complete slackers with their pathetic 70-hour work weeks. Someone once asked John McAfee how to get rich, and he wrote this back.
I worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop, without vacations or any time off, with multiple simultaneous jobs, saving all my money for more than 15 years to get where I am.
18 hours a day, 7 days a week comes out to 126 hours a week. Now, if you're like, wow, I cannot wait to work as hard as John McAfee so I can become as successful, let me just remind you that while he is the creator of McAfee Antivirus and sold his company to Intel for $7 billion, there is a little more to his story. His Wikipedia article has the best phrase ever.
His personal and business interests included smartphone apps, cryptocurrency, yoga, light sport aircraft, and recreational drug use.
He also had to flee Belize when he was suspected of murdering his neighbor. Take this guy's advice at your own peril. This work more hours advice is of course complete nonsense, and I made an entire video showing that long working hours are in fact terrible for your health, your happiness, and ironically for your productivity and for the company's bottom line. I'll leave a link down below, go watch that for the full scoop, but here are just 2 data points. Research shows that people who work 60 hours a week or more actually get no more work done than those who work 40. But health studies show that they do have an increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. Not only do the billionaires want us to work more hours, they also really, really want us in the office rather than working from home for all of that time. Here's British rich person Alan Sugar calmly and rationally explaining why working from home is so bad.
This is a bloody joke. The lazy gits make me sick. Call me old-fashioned, but all this work from home BS is a total joke. There is no way people work as hard or productive as when they had to turn up at a work location.
When he was challenged on that point, he gave this measured and thoughtful reply.
Listen, scumbag, most who work from home watch more TV than work. There are a few exceptions, but the majority are lazy gits. When some of my companies recruit, the first question asked by some applicants is, "Can I work from home?" They are shown the door.
Now, a lot of billionaires are old, like Alan Sugar, so their visceral disgust towards working from home could just be because of a certain conservatism that usually sets in as people age. But I think it's super interesting that Alan Sugar just so happens to have huge investments in office real estate, a market that is suffering because more and more people work from home, and therefore companies need less office space. Elon Musk also thinks working from home is terrible, and I'm sure that has nothing to do with the fact that he sells cars, and more people working from home means less need for cars. Let me make it very clear. The research shows that employees are just as effective and productive working from home as they are in the office. And on top of that, people who can work from home, at least part-time, experience better work-life balance and spend less time commuting, which also makes them happier and healthier. And of course, fewer people commuting means less traffic and congestion, lower CO2 emissions, and less pollution. It also means that workplaces can have smaller office spaces and save a ton of money there. There are so many proven advantages to working from home, which means that people like Musk and Sugar are deliberately ignoring the facts. But hey, what else is new? Rich people also think it's fine for them to flaunt their wealth and talk about all the money they're making, but they also say that you should never discuss salaries with your coworkers. A study found that about half of all US workers report that revealing their salary to coworkers is either discouraged or straight up prohibited and could lead to punishment. This is despite the fact that in most countries it is illegal for workplaces to keep employees from revealing their income to others. Yes, even including America, where worker protections are notoriously weak.
Thank you for reminding me. Thanks, Obama.
So, is keeping your salary to yourself good career advice? Hell no, that's terrible advice. You should absolutely talk money with your colleagues. An article in The Atlantic covered all the crucial research and had this excellent quote.
Workers can only improve their situation when they can understand their working conditions. Deciding whether a pay scale is fair cannot be left up to the employer alone.
One of my favorite business books ever is The 7-Day Weekend by Ricardo Semler about his time as CEO of Semco in Brazil, where he made the salaries of all 3,000 employees public inside the company. Here's why.
Salaries are a sensitive subject, but if discussion of salaries is taboo, what else is off limits? The only source of power in an organization is information, and withholding, filtering, or retaining information only serves those who want to accumulate power through hoarding.
I agree with Semler completely here. Knowledge is power. The company knows the salary of each and every employee, but each of them is only supposed to know their own salary. This creates an information asymmetry that is just begging to be exploited. Here's another example. Molly Moon's Ice Cream in Seattle made salaries transparent for their 150 employees, and that helped them identify and fix any existing inequality and make their staff happier and more loyal. So by all means, do talk money with your coworkers, especially if your workplace tells you not to. That's gotta mean they're hiding something. If they believe salaries were overall fair and equitable, they would not have any problem with employees knowing what others make. I want to showcase one last kind of career advice you often get from the gazillionaires. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, provides a classic example.
Any job is a good job. So this whole concept that they're dead-end jobs is not true. I've heard it my whole life, dead-end jobs, but a lot of those burger flippers end up owning and running restaurants.
Really, Jamie? A lot of fast food workers end up owning franchises. The absolutely unhinged John McAfee agreed. His career advice included,
"It doesn't matter what the work is. If you work hard, you will succeed."
Now, in case there was any doubt, let me make this clear. Of course it matters what the work is. There absolutely are dead-end jobs, and working super hard at one of those will not guarantee a payoff in the long run. But it's not hard to see how the people at the top benefit from this kind of attitude. It would be awesome for them if you would join their army of mindless serfs who will work hard at any thankless job without ever fighting for your rights, but meekly waiting for whatever pittance they're willing to dole out sometime down the road. Don't. Make sure that whatever job you take is good for you and will help you achieve your life and career goals. So, if rich people are so consistently spouting bad advice, why do we even listen to them? Well, first, it is tempting to think that anyone who's won capitalism and made it to the top of the heap must know what they're doing, and their advice should be worth following because they're smarter than the rest of us. Sadly, they're not. A Swedish study found that rich people are no more intelligent than the average population. Another reason why we listen to them may be that our monkey brains have evolved to pay attention to authority figures. It was probably good for the survival of a regular ape to be extra aware of the moods and whims of the boss ape. And finally, when you're very rich, you have access to many communication channels. You can get some hack to write a glowing biography. You can cultivate business journalists or social media influencers and reward them with money, gifts, or access for positive stories about yourself. Or you can straight up buy magazines, newspapers, and TV channels and make sure they only have nice things to say about you. All of this means that any story with the headline, "Rich person thinks X," is very likely to make it in front of your eyeballs, no matter how little evidence there is for X. Alright, so as we've seen, very rich people rarely bother backing up their beliefs with any actual facts. They don't feel the need to because their own egos and their yes men have told them for years how smart and perceptive they are. And when it comes to career advice specifically, they always have one trump card they can play: their own success story. Look at me. I worked 100 hours a week and I became a billionaire. This proves that if you work 100 hours a week, you will also be successful. This is a classic example of survivorship bias that completely ignores all of the people who worked 100 hours a week and did not become rich. Maybe because they burned out or had a heart attack, or maybe because they were still passed over for promotions because they didn't suck up to the boss enough or weren't, the boss's nephew. Also, privileged people have a very poor understanding of what made them rich. In one classic study, volunteers played a rigged game of Monopoly where one player was given twice as much money to start with and every time they passed go, and got to roll 2 dice on every turn while their doomed opponent only rolled 1. After the privileged player inevitably crushes their opponent, the researchers would ask them, "So why do you think you won?" And many of them said things like, "Well, I guess I'm just a better player." or I was just smarter about my choices. So, billionaire success stories simply can't be trusted because people are likely to exaggerate the importance of their own hard work and brilliance and completely ignore any privilege that brought them there. I can kind of relate. It must feel so much better to say, I'm rich because I'm smart and hardworking, rather than I'm rich because my parents invested $200,000 in my startup. So here's my point. It is tempting to look at a billionaire and assume that since they've gotten that rich, they must be smarter, better, more hardworking, and wiser, and therefore worth listening to. Whether they're talking about the workplace and careers or, how to structure society. It's tempting, but wrong. You cannot implicitly trust any career advice that very rich people typically give because they're not speaking to help you. They're speaking in order to promote and protect attitudes and behaviors that will keep them at the top of the pyramid. Don't get me wrong, there are people who gain wealth and power while still retaining their basic humanity.
Oh, hi, Mark.
But it's something you have to work at because our natural tendency is the opposite. Ascending the hierarchy is likely to make someone a jerk. One researcher summed it up like this:
The rich are way more likely to prioritize their own self-interests above the interests of other people. It makes them more likely to exhibit characteristics that we would stereotypically associate with, say, assholes.
So if anything, every time you see a position that many rich people share about careers or taxes or anything else really, it's probably more useful to just assume that they're wrong until proven otherwise. Let's go to another group of people who give notoriously bad career advice, the believers in positive thinking. In an article called 19 Simple Ways to Keep a Positive Attitude at Work, the author suggests that the way to career success is to always stay positive. How? The 19 tips include things like
1. Surround yourself with positive people. 2. Fill your mind with positive input. 3. Have a soothing mantra you repeat to yourself whenever you feel stressed. Breathe deeply. 5. Decorate your workspace in soothing colors. 6. Fake it till you make it. 7. Take 10-second micro breaks during the day.
How dumb is this article? Well, out of the 7 tips I just listed, 3 of them are not actually from the article. They're deliberately absurd examples I just made up. And I bet you can't tell which ones are real and which ones I made up. For the record, these are the fake ones. The idea of positive thinking and therefore completely banning negativity is not new. One of the earliest proponents was Mary Baker Eddy, who founded the Church of Christ Scientist, or Christian Science, in 1879. They believe so strongly in positive thinking that they avoid most medical treatments. They will go to the ER to set a broken leg, but if they get, say, cancer, the preferred treatment is prayer and affirmations that include things like,
disease is a lie. This is the word of God, and it has the power to heal.
While positive thinking has been around for over 100 years, it is affecting us now more than ever at home and at work. And ironically, its effects are mostly negative. Yes, studies show that forced positive thinking makes us less happy. It is a poorly defined concept, but the core idea is that no matter what happens to you, you can always choose a positive attitude. Now, this idea is not completely unfounded. I mean, in many situations, you can absolutely change your mood and outlook through conscious effort. Let's say you're stuck in traffic on your way to work. In a situation like that, you can probably change your mindset and switch from being annoyed about the delay to a more positive interpretation of the situation. Great, now I have more time to listen to this interesting podcast on my way to work, or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. But the most extreme versions of positive thinking, especially stuff like The Secret and similar pseudoscientific nonsense, go much further. They claim that you can not only change your thinking in any situation, you can also change your reality and attract anything you want. A new car, a higher salary, a life partner, just by visualizing it. And of course, they say that you can cure yourself of any disease just by having a positive mindset. Tell that to someone who's seriously ill, someone who's just been fired, or someone who's suffering from severe depression. Actually, you should never tell them that, Because telling someone in a really rough life situation that they should think more positively is incredibly condescending and a terrible way to trivialize their pain. It's called toxic positivity. The American sociologist Barbara Ehrenreich literally wrote the book on it. I'll admit it, when it's presented in its extreme form, I positively hate positive thinking. There are a ton of people marketing positive thinking as the path to happiness and success. And you can't believe a word they say, especially about careers. So what do they have to say about work and careers? Ever heard any of these sayings?
If you can dream it, you can do it. Fake it till you make it. Just believe in yourself. Always have a positive can-do attitude. Every cloud has a silver lining. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
There are also articles like what you can learn from a difficult boss or why having a tough job is good for you, both of which are real headlines I've seen on LinkedIn recently. It would obviously be amazing if you could improve your circumstances simply by being more positive, but you can't. It turns out that faking positive emotions doesn't make you happy, it makes you stressed.
When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad!
Here's an example. German researchers set up a fake customer complaints call center and asked 80 university students to act as staff, fielding calls from irate customers complaining about whatever. Half of this group were told that they could verbally defend themselves against rude behavior, while the other half had to remain friendly and polite at all times. And what they did was they measured the volunteers' heart rates. They found that the people who were allowed to defend themselves had only a slightly increased heart rate, while those who had to fake being positive and polite in the face of customer abuse saw their heart rates shoot up and stay high even long after they had ended the call. The professor behind the study said this:
"We call this kind of faked emotion emotional dissonance. We found that the amount of time actually spent with customers was irrelevant when measuring stress compared to the amount of time workers had to demonstrate emotional dissonance."
He also added this:
"It's about time we did away with the concept that the customer is always right and showed more respect for those in customer service jobs."
Well, hallelujah. So positive thinking is stressful, but the fans of positive thinking might then argue that even if maintaining a positive attitude is hard and stressful, at least it'll pay off and make you more likely to reach your goals. But they'd be wrong. Research shows that positive thinking just does not work. A meta-analysis looked at all the available studies on people using positive thinking to reach all kinds of goals like better health, weight loss, quit smoking, recovering from surgery, improving grades in school, job hunting, better job performance, or reducing stress. And the result was devastatingly clear, according to the researcher.
People who positively fantasize make either the same or less progress in achieving attainable wishes than those who don't.
So positive thinking can actually backfire and make a person less likely to reach their goals. Why? My guess is that a person who maintains a laser-like focus on only the positive is both more stressed, but also more likely to ignore any problems they're facing, and therefore less likely to act to solve their problems. Another common tip that these positive thinking types promote is affirmations. Look into the mirror every morning and tell yourself that you are smart, capable, brave, or whatever else you feel you're lacking. If you want a raise or promotion, write down 20 times a day that you are worthy and deserving of that raise and promotion.
I will sell this house today.
Does that work? Scott Adams, who came up with the Dilbert comic strips, specifically credits daily affirmations for his success.
I thought to myself, let me try something else. I tried. I, Scott Adams, will be a famous cartoonist. And I became a famous cartoonist.
That proves that affirmations work, right? This is where things get a little spicy. Scott Adams has slid further and further into like a generalized misogyny and racism, to the point where pretty much all the newspapers that used to run Dilbert decided to cancel it. Dilbert now only runs online in two places, on locals.com, which is a failing alt-right Patreon clone started by Dave Rubin, and on X, which is a failing alt-right Twitter clone started by Elon Musk. I really doubt that Scott Adams wanted Dilbert out of newspapers, but that raises the question, if you can get anything you want with affirmations, how could these things happen to him? Now, he has not actually said what his affirmations were for that time period, so who knows? Maybe affirmations do work, and he was actually writing,
I, Scott Adams, will make myself a laughingstock and tank my biggest product
15 times a day. Either way, anyone who's trying to sell you on affirmations as a tool to boost your career has some explaining to do. Now, a quick point. Negative self-talk is absolutely damaging, something I struggle with myself, and something you need to address. I have worked with a psychologist to learn that skill for a while now, and it's made a huge difference for me to find effective tools I can use. But crucially, positive thinking in general and affirmations specifically are not the solution. Steve Rose summed up the research evidence on affirmations like this.
Positive affirmations do not work for persons trying to boost self-esteem, change negative thoughts, or escape from painful emotions.
These positive thinking types also often promote self-care as a solution to any and all workplace problems. Are you overworked? Do yoga every morning. Are you stressed because your workplace is doing layoffs and you're worried you'll lose your job? Why not draw yourself a nice bubble bath? Is your boss bullying you? Try some breathing exercises. There is nothing wrong with taking good care of yourself, but it is never, ever going to be a solution to systemic problems in the workplace. At best, self-care is a temporary way to boost your own resources in order to survive a stressful job. At worst, it's a distraction that turns something that is clearly a workplace problem into a you problem. This is probably also why so many workplaces promote exactly this type of intervention. It absolves them from fixing anything about the workplace itself and allows them to leave it up to employees to find ways to survive a stressful work environment. And I'll just hammer this point home, that approach has been proven not to work. A huge British study found that individual level interventions at work, like yoga classes or stress management trainings, have zero effect on employee well-being. In fact, some of them make things worse. I'm going to say something super controversial now. If there are problems in the workplace, maybe we should try to fix the workplace and not the employees. Why does positive thinking advice get so much traction? Well, I think it's because it offers easy, attractive solutions to all of your problems. It promises that you won't ever have to make any tough decisions or tackle any of your problems head on. You can just change your mindset, and the problem will go away or not matter anymore. Honestly, it would be amazing if positive thinking worked, but research shows that it doesn't. And not only is this advice provably wrong, it's also incredibly toxic because it blames the victim. According to the positive thinkers, if you're unhappy in any way, you've only got yourself to blame. It may be that your boss is a jerk and your coworkers bully you and the culture is completely toxic, but if you can just have a positive attitude and manifest the change you want, your problems will go away. It logically follows that if your circumstances suck, you only have yourself to blame. So not only are you miserable, but now it's also your own damn fault. In the most radical versions of positive thinking, everything in your life, good or bad, is something that you attracted to yourself. If you have an abusive partner, your negative mindset attracted that. Were you sexually assaulted? That's right, you attracted that. If you have cancer, you attracted that. So it's your own damn fault. And by the way, the cure for your cancer is not chemo, but you guessed it, changing your mindset. One of the main fraudsters behind The Secret, the most popular book and movie that pushes this kind of nonsense, was asked, what about starving infants? How did they attract their bad situation, given that they can't visualize anything yet? And his answer? They must have attracted that in a past life. So, the positive thinking types who say that everything about work is awesome, if you just believe it strongly enough, are wrong. But their polar opposites, the work cynics, are just as wrong. These are the people who argue that all jobs suck, all workplaces are bad, all bosses are jerks, and every single coworker you'll ever have is an idiot. The more extreme version of this position even argues that all jobs are equally bad. No job is better than any other. People only work for the paycheck, and if you hate your job, there's no point in looking for a better one because all other jobs and workplaces are just as bad. They also argue that most jobs are meaningless.
Unless you're a doctor or some other job where you actually help society function, your job is really just a chore you do to get the money you need for survival.
Is this true, though? Is your job meaningless unless you're a doctor? I mean, just looking at hospitals alone, the claim is ridiculous. What about nurses? They actually perform the bulk of patient care, so their jobs are deeply meaningful. Without orderlies, nothing would get done in a hospital ever. Good luck running a hospital without them. If the cleaning staff don't do their job well, patients will die from infections. If admin staff don't do their jobs, no one will ever get the correct treatment. If hospital IT staff don't do their jobs, nothing works. Without a finance department in a hospital, there's no control over expenses. And without HR, no hospital staff gets hired or paid. The view that unless you're directly saving lives, your job is meaningless is just stupid. And we can take it further. City sanitation workers have incredibly meaningful jobs, and if you've ever seen a city without them, you know why. Bus drivers help people get to work or school every day and reduce traffic congestion in a city. Social workers help some of society's most vulnerable people, regardless of what some idiots say. Teachers, sewer workers, builders, traffic wardens, mechanics, chefs, waiters, architects, bridge engineers, electricity workers, farmers, city planners, delivery people, you get the picture. Anything in your life that you depend on was supplied by people doing their jobs, and not just by them directly, but also by any support functions that enable them to do their job. Yes, some jobs are meaningless, or worse, some jobs are actively harmful, like investment banking, tobacco production, or advertising. If you want to know if your job is meaningful, ask yourself this: who is a little bit better off because of the work I do? And I think you'd be surprised at just how many jobs are ultimately benefiting someone. And if your answer is, my job helps no one, or even my job hurts people, then maybe it's time to quit and find a new job. You might think of it like this. If you're just now finishing up a, let's say, computer science degree, and you're wondering where to work, ask yourself if it would feel better to use your skills to make the world a better place, or to go to work for Meta or Alphabet to help make their algorithms even more addictive and serve even more ads. Another thing the work cynics say is that all work is exploitative. You get paid a pittance and the boss and the owners get all the profits. And you know what? I might give the cynics this one. We do indeed live in a society. For most humans, that society is capitalist, and we have long known that capitalism is inherently exploitative of workers. But even then, not all workplaces are equally exploitative. Walmart is infamous for having salaries that are so low that many of their employees also receive government benefits in order to survive. Costco, on the other hand, is known for paying and treating employees well and giving them fair benefits. The claim that all workplaces are equally exploitative is ridiculous. And if you really want a job that is more meaningful and less exploitative, then get a job in the public sector where workplaces actually exist to provide services to the public and not just to generate profits for already ultra-rich shareholders. In the more extreme versions of work cynicism, people are looking to abolish all work, though it is unclear who will, pick up the trash, do the surgeries, clean the sewers, or cook the food in that scenario. The robots aren't quite there yet. Work is not going away, not soon, maybe not ever. You can blame capitalism all you want for how bad work is, but no matter which economic system we live under, there will still be work. We can all strive for a future where work is no longer mandatory. I think it would be awesome if robots and AIs could do most of the work and we all got a universal basic income. Maybe we will achieve that post-scarcity, post-capitalist society where money becomes obsolete a la Star Trek. Or maybe we'll create a new social order where self-governing workers' collectives run their own companies and receive the profits from their own labor. If you think this last one sounds as far-fetched and implausible as Star Trek, then let me tell you about Mondragon, a workers' cooperative in Spain with 80,000 employees who have been doing just that successfully since the 1950s. Each of those two futures, or a combination of them, are entirely possible, but let me make 2 points here. One, it might all be quite a ways off. And until it happens, most of us will still have plain old jobs under the current system. I would rather that we spend that time in jobs we like instead of jobs we hate. And second, even if we get one of those futures, there will still be work. People will still organize in groups to achieve common goals, and that will still require us to consciously create good working conditions. Even a workers' collective where no one is exploited financially could still be a terrible workplace if we don't try to make it a good one. So why do the cynics grab our attention? Cynicism or nihilism can be attractive positions.
No, Johnny, these men are nihilists. There's nothing to be afraid of.
They're easy because they require no effort. What's the point in trying to improve your situation at work when it's all exploitative and meaningless anyway? If a person has a bad job, or has had several bad jobs in a row, I can definitely understand why they'd think that all jobs are equally bad. But the work cynics are still wrong because many people like their jobs. This is not my opinion, that's just a verifiable fact. When you survey people anonymously about their jobs, around 25 to 35% say they actually like what they do. When you survey all the employees in a workplace, some workplaces come out with over 90% happy employees who say they actually like working there, while of course many others are much worse. Saying that every job and every workplace is equally bad is just factually wrong. There are good jobs, good bosses, and good workplaces out there. They're not even that rare. Every industry, every country, every area has good and bad workplaces. And here's my main problem with this cynical position. If you hate your job, but you believe that all jobs are just as bad, then you're more likely to stick around in a bad job instead of fighting to improve conditions or looking for something better. If you think that all jobs are equally meaningless and exploitative, you are more likely to accept a meaningless and exploitative job. Or if you're looking for a new job, maybe you'll just take whatever you stumble upon first, instead of actively looking for a job that will be good for you. Next up, the alpha males. I don't know about you, but I have the hardest time taking them seriously with their incredibly backwards and very, very limited view of how a real man should be. But the fact remains that they have tons of devoted followers, even if many of those followers are preteens who just regurgitate their opinions for shock value. To an alpha male, work is ultimately about their individual advancement. It's about them getting ahead, making the most money, and gaining the most power over the most people, and exercising that power, obviously. And if they need to lie, cheat, manipulate, or even break the law to get there, well, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few coworkers. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and they all want to be top dog. And it's implicit in their worldview that they naturally belong at the top by virtue of their toughness, decisiveness, ruthlessness, and other hyper-masculine traits. But at the same time, weirdly, they say you can never challenge your boss. One of these tough guys wrote a book called You Can't Win a Fight with Your Boss. Here's an example of his fun advice.
Getting into a fight with your boss can be a really horror experience. No matter how hard you try, you can never win. Avoid crisis with your boss. Be nice or get fired. Well, at least until you become a boss yourself.
Got that last one? Be nice and meek until the day when you become the boss and can stop being nice. Suck up and kick down. Accept your position in the hierarchy until you get to the top of it. Then you can go nuts. Jocko Willink is another alpha male with bulging muscles and a podcast. Why do they all have to have a podcast? Should I start a podcast? Anyway, someone asked him what to do when you have an incompetent manager, and he said this.
What you don't want to do is create an antagonistic relationship with him, and that includes threatening him with your work ethic, threatening him with your performance level, threatening him with your skills. So you almost have to throttle back just a little bit enough that he's not threatened. Now, the other thing you could do instead of throttling back is what you do is you give him the credit.
The credit, yeah.
And you give him the credit, you're good. And now he's like pumped.
Yep.
If you do it right, you will rise to the top. If you screw it up, you will never rise. If you create an antagonistic relationship with him, you will not promote. If you do it right, you will end up above him in the chain of command. It will take time. It will take swallowing of pride. But it will happen. It might take 5 years. It might take 7 years.
I wish Jocko was joking, but he's not. He makes the same point in several different videos, and he has almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube, so a lot of people are listening to his crap advice. Does anyone else see the glaring contradiction here? On the one hand, a real alpha male is someone who belongs at the top and will do anything to get there. On the other hand, he should also meekly accept any nonsense coming from his superiors and do his best to make them look good, no matter how incompetent they are. I'm not sure how you square that circle. Maybe you do like Jocko and convince yourself that you're not meekly brown-nosing your boss. No. You're playing the game. My personal explanation for how they square this contradiction is that the only thing an alpha male loves more than himself is belonging to a clear hierarchy that gives his life meaning and purpose. Another absolutely essential pillar of the alpha male worldview is that privilege is a myth. If workplaces happen to have a lot of older cishet white males in well-paid positions of power, well then that's just because they are more qualified for those positions and not because they have advantages that others don't. We know that's not true. Research very clearly shows that there are huge biases favoring straight white dudes when it comes to hiring, promotions, and raises. And this is, of course, on top of the systemic generational privilege that just coincidentally happens to favor the same group. To the alpha males, any such hierarchy is inherently good because it's the result of a straight meritocracy that just naturally allowed the best people to get to the top. And any attempt to challenge these hierarchies threatens the very stability of the Western world. That's why they have to be against the very idea of privilege. And of course, some have gone completely over the edge and claimed that the world is currently prejudiced against white Christian males, and actually it's the black, lesbian, disabled Satanists who now have all the privilege. If there's one thing the alphas hate with a burning passion right now, it's DEI initiatives in the workplace. That is, any efforts in the workplace to create more diversity, equity, and inclusion, and reduce bias due to race, gender, age, sexual orientation, or other factors. How could that possibly be a bad thing, you ask? Let's hear a measured counter-argument from one of the most important intellectuals on the right.
And the corporate world, diversity, inclusivity, and equity, that radical leftist trinity, my preferred acronym, DIE. CEOs, what in the world is wrong with you? Can't you see that the ideologues who push such appalling nonsense are driven by an agenda that is not only absolutely antithetical to your free market enterprise as such, but precisely targeted at the freedoms that made your success possible? Are you really so blind, cowed, and cowardly with all your so-called privilege?
It may seem weird to you that I mentioned Jordan Peterson as an example of an alpha male when everything about him just screams nerdy college professor. But it seems to me that he desperately wants to be seen as tough and masculine, which is probably why he always has to deliver his messages with such performative, over-the-top anger and disgust. He can't just say that, you know what, DEI might have some disadvantages and we should consider those. No. It has to be DEI, I call it DIE, is undermining Western society. As always, let's look at the research. Here's a conclusion from one group who analyzed the issue.
The business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, is stronger than ever.
And I know what you're thinking. That's gotta be some fake social studies bullshit from some ultra-Marxist California college professor, right? Wrong. This comes from the consulting company McKinsey. Now, I'm not a fan of McKinsey, but when even those ultra-capitalists say that companies should do DEI because it's good for business, we should probably take it seriously. So much for go woke, go broke, huh? Sadly, McKinsey also notes that progress on DEI seems to be slowing in US workplaces. Maybe because of these alpha types and their righteous outrage that we dare question the rightful supremacy of the people currently at the top of the pyramid. Like, for instance, Elon Musk. Elon Musk, like Jordan Peterson, is another excruciatingly awkward nerd who clearly longs to be an alpha and, like Peterson, is on a crusade against DEI. Musk, however, has stepped it up a notch and taken the position of maximum racism that allowing more minorities to become doctors and pilots will surely cost lives. Again, the research is clear, it won't. In fact, it's the other way around. While some white people are afraid of what would happen if they were seen by a black doctor, in reality, studies show that it's black patients who have worse patient outcomes when they go to white doctors. The alphas are also very skeptical of women at work, and especially at the idea that women could in any way be as smart, talented, or deserving of promotions as men. This can have very real consequences, for instance, for hiring, promotions, and raises, where we know that women are systematically being discriminated against. Here's an example. In 2018, a story came out that the Tokyo Medical University in Japan had been actively lowering the scores of any women taking the entrance exam. They had to stop doing that, and now women make up 40% of medical students. Jordan Peterson also claims that the gender pay gap is a myth, but he takes it even further. He's just not sure that this entire thing of men and women working together is even a good idea.
Let's have a real question. Can men and women work together in the workplace?
Yes, I do it.
How do you know?
Because I work with a lot of women.
Right. Well, it's been happening for, 40 years? And things are deteriorating very rapidly at the moment in terms of the relationships between men and women. It's like, we don't know if men and women can work together.
What do you mean? We've only tried it for 40 years? What the hell? Men and women have been working together for as long as the human race has existed. If you want to look specifically at workplaces with paid jobs, that goes back to the Industrial Revolution starting in the 1700s, where men and women absolutely worked together. Also, what the hell is this supposed to mean?
Here's a rule. How about no makeup in the workplace?
Why would that be a rule?
Why should you wear makeup in the workplace? Isn't that sexually provocative?
No.
It's not?
No.
Well, what is it then? What's the purpose of makeup?
Some people would like to just put on makeup.
Why do you make your lips red? Because they turn red during sexual arousal. That's why. Why do you put rouge on your cheeks? Same reason.
If you can figure out what he's implying, write a comment, because I am honestly stumped. Just for the record, research shows that the gender pay gap is real and that all genders are equally valuable in the workplace, and women wearing or not wearing makeup is their own damn business. I think the real issue here is that some alpha males long for the olden days where the man worked and his trad wife stayed at home. Now, they can't openly say that yet, but they can imply that women just don't belong in the workplace, or at the very least, they aren't as valuable as their male coworkers. Think I'm exaggerating? Check this out.
Any man in an important position who takes 6 months of leave for a newborn is a loser. In the old days, men had babies and worked harder to provide for their future. That's the correct masculine response.
That's Joe Lonsdale, founder of Palantir and venture capitalist, trying to tell you that if you want to be a real man, you can't take 6 months off work to be with your kid, and employing a clear appeal to nostalgia by talking about the good old days. This kind of nonsense matters because gender stereotypes are not only descriptive but also prescriptive. They can be used to signal what women and men should be like, including the idea that men should prioritize work over family, and those ideas can have some real negative consequences at work.
Men who do take parental leave can therefore face backlash and be seen as weak, lacking work commitment, and so on, which can result in consequences at work, such as being demoted or not taken seriously. Men are, of course, aware of these potential consequences, and this could definitely contribute to them deciding against taking parental leave, even if it's offered.
Remember that Japanese medical school that cheated to keep women out? When asked why they did it, they had this nifty excuse.
Women often leave the field due to childbirth or child rearing. It was an unspoken agreement done to solve the doctor shortage.
This is a common excuse for why women are being paid or promoted less. They might have children and take time off work. Notice how neatly this dovetails. Men should not take parental leave, so women are more likely to have to take time off to have children. So therefore, we are justified in limiting women's access to the workplace. By the way, these alphas are often the same people who have a weird obsession with falling birth rates and claim that they are a huge problem and we should be having more children, while at the same time refusing to change society in any meaningful way that would make having kids easier. Make it make sense. Please. I've also noticed that a lot of alpha guys want you to not have a job at all. They say that as a real independent alpha male, working for a paycheck is somehow beneath you, and that you can never achieve the same levels of success and wealth as they have through a job. So what should you do instead? Logan Paul says you'll become rich if you buy his NFTs, which of course turned out to be a complete scam. Andrew Tate wants you to buy his course where you learn affiliate marketing, copywriting, freelancing, and stock crypto trading, which turned out to be a scam. And he's also shilling crypto now because of course he is. So why do alpha males attract such large audiences? Well, they're very loud and they're very sure of themselves, and they speak to men who are not. Many young men are lonely, unfulfilled, unsure of their place in the world, scared about their future, and depressed. How do alpha males appeal to them? Here's an analysis from a highly respected modern philosopher, Rusty Cole from True Detective.
Jesus Christ, your arms open and close. The echoes of my life could never contain a single truth about you. You move the feather in the ash, you touch the leaf with its flame.
Transference of fear and self-loathing to an authoritarian vessel. It's catharsis. He absorbs their dread with his narrative. Because of this, he's effective in proportion to the amount of certainty he can project.
He absorbs their dread, and he is effective in proportion to the amount of certainty he can project. That is an eerily accurate description of most alpha males. An alpha male can, by definition, never be less than 100% sure of himself. Cosplaying as a real man leaves no room for things like introspection, self-reflection, or nuance. That's probably also why they feel like they have to keep upping the ante and say things that are more and more outrageous and provocative. True Detective was such a great show. It's a real shame they never made any more seasons beyond the first one. The good news is that these people are very easy to recognize. How can you tell if a person considers himself an alpha male? Don't worry, they'll tell you. You can also recognize many of these alphas by the way they show off their muscles. A ton of them are buff and are happy to share their wisdom in tight shirts or even shirtless, so you can better admire their physique. In their world, being buff is proof that they're right, and it seems like there are extra alpha points in being a former MMA fighter, because what could possibly be more manly? I know you know this, but our society massively overvalues physical fitness and attractiveness, and having big biceps does not make a person more correct about anything. I mean, I have pretty big biceps, but I never show them off to implicitly support my case. I show them off because I'm proud of them. So why are the alpha dudes so consistently wrong about work? Let's leave aside the fact that the very concept of an alpha male is a myth that comes from fundamentally misunderstanding research into wolves, and instead look at the central contradiction in their message. It's not a new thing that there are men out there who have built a business on teaching other men how to be more manly. I had a good chuckle at the videos from the alpha boot camps where men paid thousands of dollars to get yelled at.
Move forward. Move forward. Move forward. I'm a man.
Forward.
I am. I am a man. I am a man.
Tucker Carlson telling men to tan their testicles is the latest and most ridiculous example, but this goes back decades. Here in Denmark, our local alpha male offered real man boot camps all the way back in the 80s, where men could spend a weekend naked in the forest, fight and roll in mud, and baptize their penises with wine in front of each other. And I gotta say, all of this is giving Top Gun shirtless volleyball scene. But that's not the most glaring contradiction. This is. Their definition of manliness includes things like rugged independence, determination, self-confidence, and strength. By that definition, a real man should not give a damn if anyone else thinks he's a real man. Any man who gives up on doing stuff he enjoys because he fears it may make him look less manly is, by their own definition, already less of a man. A real man who wants to take parental leave is going to do so, regardless of what anyone else tells him to do. Who is the realest man here? The man who wants to wear high heels to the office and does it? Or the man who wants to but refrains because someone might think less of him for it? And finally, research very clearly shows that the most effective business managers have great relational skills like empathy, communication, and likability. These are, of course, all skills that are more feminine coded and pretty much the opposite of alpha male assholishness. And if you want to talk about just building a good life for yourself, the world's longest running longitudinal study has followed a group of 250 men for 80 years and concluded that the key to a good life, whether you want to look at lifetime income, career success, health, or happiness, is having great social relations. Alrighty, the last group we're going to look at, who is both very loud but also very wrong about work, is the boomers. In any tough spot in life, it's worth it to get support and advice from people close to you who have your best interests at heart. But when it comes to work, you have to be very careful about getting advice from older people. And let's face it, even if you don't seek out their opinion, older family members are liable to offer it anyway, so their advice can be especially hard to avoid. And some of them have a lot of opinions about young people. Here are some of the boomers' typical well-reasoned critiques about the younger generations.
No one wants to work anymore. Avocado toast. Social media is rotting their brains. Modern degrees like gender studies are useless, and Marxist university professors indoctrinate students. Something participation trophies.
You think I'm exaggerating? Here's an article by angry British boomer Matthew Lynn, where he complains that young people are tanking Britain's productivity.
Young people have a sense of pure entitlement, mixed in with a dash of idleness. They don't believe in the value of work. They think the world owes them a living, regardless of whether they make any effort or not. And fed on a constant diet of TikTok celebrating quiet quitting and lazy girl jobs, their role models are icons of indulgence and indolence instead of industry and application.
Interestingly, Matthew was and somehow still is a huge fan of Brexit, but sees absolutely no reason to believe that Brexit, rather than young people, has anything to do with tanking the economy. I don't mean to imply that Maddie the Boomer is wrong about everything. When a report came out on January 4 this year showing that British executives had already earned the median UK annual income only 4 days into the new year, he did write an article calling it a disgrace. That's nice. What's that? Really? I've just been informed that I was wrong. He actually called it a disgrace that it took executives 4 whole days to get there, that CEO pay ought to be even higher, and that anyone who dares to complain about their income gap is only motivated by envy. It turns out I do mean to imply that Maddie the Boomer is wrong about everything. I'm going to let this New Zealand politician say what we're all thinking.
Okay, Boomer.
It is true that younger generations approach work differently than the boomers did. Young people expect flexible and reasonable working hours. They expect fair compensation, meaningful tasks, feedback, and appreciation for the work they do. And most importantly, they expect to be treated like goddamn human beings at work. And they're willing to leave any job that does not offer this. That does not make them weak or spoiled or lazy. It makes them smart and brave. In my opinion, the boomers are the idiots here for putting up with awful working conditions for so long. And telling young people to be more like the boomers at work is terrible advice. We looked at the work cynics earlier who believe that work just sucks and there's nothing you can do about it. And many boomers absolutely subscribe to this philosophy. To them, a job is primarily a means of making money, and hating your job is perfectly normal. It actually goes way beyond that. Have you noticed how much boomer humor revolves around hating your job, hating your spouse, hating your family, or hating younger generations? The mere existence of all those mother-in-law jokes alone are a really good indication. It really seems like misery is a foundation of the boomer worldview, and some of them seem to take a perverse pride in complaining about every wrong they perceive, while at the same time looking down at and ridiculing anyone who tries to create a better life and a better world for themselves. The one thing boomers do feel great about is the past. Yes, everything sucks now, they say, but things used to be great back then, before the world went to hell. It is no coincidence that both Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump ran on a platform of making America great again. That attracts older people in droves because it exploits the nostalgia bias, this completely unfounded sense that the world used to be better in the good old days, which really just comes from the fact that for many people, life was simpler and happier back then because they were younger back then. The world is better now on almost every metric compared to 50 years ago, including things like gender equality, LGBTQ+ rights, and rights for minorities, which kind of makes it feel like anyone who thinks the world was better back then is against this type of progress. Workplaces specifically are way better today. Ask yourself this: would you rather work in a typical workplace today or a typical workplace in the 1970s? If you pick the 70s, let me tell you about the Tiger Oil memos. There used to be an oil company in Texas called Tiger Oil, where the CEO kept sending out these completely unhinged memos to his staff, where he kept threatening to fire them for the pettiest reasons. Here are two of my favorites. For instance, it seems like Mike has had it with office celebrations.
There will be no more birthday celebrations, birthday cakes, levity, or celebrations of any kind within the office. This is a business office. If you have to celebrate, do it after office hours on your own time.
Or how about this one?
Do not speak to me when you see me. If I want to speak to you, I will do so. I want to save my throat. I don't want to ruin it by saying hello to all of you sons of bitches.
Why do I feel like Tiger Mike and Maddie the Boomer would just love each other? Boomers want you to believe that the world is awful and you shouldn't try to fight for more fairness and equality at work or anywhere else. That is terrible advice. Here's another example. If you tell your parents, relatives, or friends from older generations that your job is killing you and you're thinking of quitting, you are very likely to get advice that reflects this miserable worldview. Here's what that may sound like.
You should be grateful to just have a job. Everybody hates their job. You have a stable income and career. Why would you put that at risk? Don't rock the boat. You have to go along to get along.
The older people in your life don't mean to hurt you, but if you take their advice and stick it out on a bad job, it will hurt you. It can even kill you. I have a whole video on when you should quit your job and why it's often the best thing you can do for your career. I'll link to it down below. Go watch that. Another cornerstone of the boomer worldview is that you should definitely not seek help or try to make things better. If you go to therapy, you're a crybaby. If you're politically active, you're naive. If you try to fight climate change, you're an idiot. It is a mainstay of the boomer worldview that everything is awful and you just have to accept it. Obviously, not all older people think like this.
Oh, hi, Mark.
but if you do get this kind of advice from an older person in your life, take it with a grain of salt. Louis C.K. is currently trying to rehabilitate himself after his problems, and that has resulted in a sharp uptick in the number of times I've seen this clip posted as inspirational or an important life lesson.
Can I have a mango pop?
No, there's only one.
That's not fair. It's not fair, Daddy.
What?
Lily got a mango pop and I didn't get one.
Yep.
Well, that's not fair.
I don't even know what that means.
Why does she get one and not me?
Because she's a separate person from you. You're never going to get the same things as other people. It's never going to be equal. It's not going to happen ever in your life, so you might as well learn that now, okay?
Got that? Life's not fair and it won't ever be. That is prime boomer advice. Remember, they grew up in a world that was massively more unfair to women and minorities, and many of them used life's not fair as a coping strategy and as a defense for why they were not out there marching for better conditions. As a statement of fact, life's not fair is true-ish, I guess. Our modern capitalist society is demonstrably unfair in about a million ways. But people who say that don't mean it as a statement of fact, do they? No, they want you to take it as a declaration of defeatism. The implied corollary to the world isn't fair is, and it won't ever be, so it's pointless to try and make it more fair, so you may as well give up and accept things as they are. Now, it's true that the world will never be 100% fair, but I believe we should still work to make it as fair as possible. I will say that Louis C.K. redeems himself a little bit with this line.
Listen to me. The only time you look in your neighbor's bowl is to make sure that they have enough.
That's a good point. So why do we even listen to the boomers? I guess it's a natural instinct to think that older people must have more relevant life experiences and that makes their opinions worth listening to. You know, the village elders or the wise sages ought to know a thing or two that young people can learn from. And of course, in many cases, this advice comes from family elders, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles are close to you and will have opinions that they would like to share, often whether you ask for them or not. But as we've seen, their advice is very often wrong. Here's another example of someone complaining about young people.
What is happening to our young people? They disrespect their elders. They disobey their parents. They ignore the laws. They riot in the streets. Their morals are decaying.
Okay, boomer. Just another boomer complaining about young people, right? Kinda. This was written by Plato 2,500 years ago. There are similar quotes from all historical periods because older people have always complained about younger generations and they can be safely ignored whenever they do it. No, young people are not weak or decadent. Ask yourself who is really weak. The boomer who took shit from an asshole boss for decades, or the Gen Zer who quit and found a better job, rather than continue to be mistreated. Is a person strong when they suffer quietly for years and pass on trauma to future generations? Or is a person a real badass when they face their issues and seek help to become happier and more capable? So these are the 5 kinds of people that are the most wrong about work and careers and whose advice is consistently the most harmful. Did I forget someone? Write a comment and tell me who else gives shockingly bad career advice. And if you found this useful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's worth noting that there is a ton of overlap between these groups. Many billionaires are boomers, and many of them desperately long to be seen as alpha males. Many boomers are work cynics, and when I was researching this video, I was not at all surprised to learn that alpha male affirmations are a real thing that exists in this world.
My boldness cuts a path through life for me. I radiate sex appeal and confidence.
Scott Adams is a rich person, a boomer, and somehow both a work cynic and a promoter of toxic positivity. That's an impressive balancing act right there. The one thing all of these people have in common is that all of their advice serves to protect the status quo. It is inherent inherently conservative and designed to make you accept what currently is rather than try and create something better. You may feel like there are serious systemic problems and iniquities in society in general and in our workplaces specifically, but their advice is to never try and fix it. The billionaires say, leave it to us, work meekly according to our plan and your reward will come. The boomers say, sure, the world isn't fair, and if you try to change anything, you're just putting yourself at risk. The alpha males say, tan your balls and don't argue with the boss. The work cynics would of course agree that things are bad at work, but then they say there's no point in doing anything because all work inherently sucks. And the positive thinking types are like, how about a nice bubble bath? The one thing they all do agree on is that if anything needs fixing, it's you. You can work on your own attitude. You can boost your manliness. You can make the best of working for a bad boss. Now, please note, I'm not saying that every single one of these groups is always wrong about work, but there is enough of a pattern here that I think it's worth it to be immediately skeptical whenever you see career advice from any of them. But here's the question. If we can't trust billionaires and alpha males to steer us right about our careers, and we can't even trust well-meaning older family members, who should we trust? I think there are three ways to go here. One is to trust the research. There is so much fascinating research that's relevant to our work lives, and all of it can be found with a simple internet search. I've added links to all of the research I cite in the video description. Second, trust yourself. No one knows better than you what works for you. Prioritize your own health and well-being at work. No one can reliably do that for you long term. And ironically, that's actually likely to be great for your career. Research shows that people who are happy at work are more productive, more creative, less stressed, and have better health than those who hate their jobs, just to mention a few advantages. They also have higher lifetime incomes and are happier in their private lives. And thirdly, you can, of course, trust me. I mean, just look at these biceps. Stay happy.